What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Opening Pair Sports Zone edition number 9. As tonight we take a look at the upcoming Lions tour to South Africa and ask the pivotal question: who will start the first test? I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Kyle Gavin. Kyle, as a big rugby man, you must be very, very excited about this.
Do you know what? I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm kind of getting to take the reins over a little and kind of grill you tonight. So yeah, I am. I'm a little bit out of my depth, but look, we've got an exciting show lined up, and looking forward to getting stuck in.
Yeah, and we're not alone again this week. Why don't you set the scene for us?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm not really a rugby guy, so we've decided we'd call in some expertise. We've called in a good friend of ours, Mr. Podge O'Donnell.
How you doing, guys? Delighted to join you.
Great to have you here.
Yeah, not at all.
Podge, it's great to have you on. Thanks so much for giving up your time to come and join us tonight as we kind of bail into this Lions tour. Just for the audience at home, why don't you give you a couple of minutes here just to introduce yourself to them, who you are, where you come from, and what do you do?
Yeah, I come from Mullingar, and I know you lads quite well, and grew up with you, and I'm living up in Dublin now for work, and still a Mullingar man. And you look, played a good bit of rugby over the years at Mullingar, a little bit with Buccaneers, Monkstown, and recently I got stuck in managing the Terenure under-20s up here in Dublin, and I would have looked after the Buccaneers under-20s for a couple of years as well. And on one of those teams, we might have a starter on our Lions team, Duffer, which is quite unusual to be talking about. But I'm involved in rugby all my life, and certainly a fan of the Lions tour, because I think touring's a big part of rugby, and it's probably the closest thing to amateurism still left in professional sport, and it has a huge history and pedigree. So I'm quite excited I'm delighted the tour looks like it's going to take place and get stuck into it during the summer. Yeah, touch wood.
Yeah.
Kyler, have you any opening questions for Podge before we get into this?
No, it's great to have your expertise along. I said I'm not really well up on things here, so we're just kind of excited to, as you say, get this tour up and running and see if we can come up with a 15 amongst the three of us, mainly you two. Duffer, you kind of want to get stuck into the dark arts, as you said.
Oh yeah, I think. Listen, let's get up this sort of depth chart that we've pulled together with all the players by position. Podger, as a former hooker, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask you to sort of take the lead on the front row, the 1, 2, and 3. Maybe let's take loosehead prop at 1. What's your thoughts on kind of the 5 guys on top there? Is there anyone missing? Is anybody who could bolt into this, or do we think we kind of have this covered off in terms of who's going to be the starting guy with these 5 selections?
Yeah, we'll I suppose we'll start in numerical order and start on the loose side of the scrum. And I think when I'm looking to pick a team to take on South Africa, you know, they're one of the biggest, most physical teams in the world. You know, I think everybody knows how you have to beat them. You have to beat them up front. And, you know, when I was looking at my front 5 and the front row, I was looking for a mix of size, experience, and, you know, like seasoned test playing players, like open a match of a Lions tour, you don't want to be sticking in a novice prop. And so that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to set the scene early, and I've gone from Andrew Porter. You know, when you're looking at, I said size. Andrew Porter, he's a massive lump of man. His scrummaging at loosehead has improved, and I think during the Six Nations, he did quite well when playing for Ireland. I was close to picking Cian Healy. I'm just a huge fan of Cian Healy. He's done it time and time again, and but I think Warren Gatland is going to go for size, and I'd like to see Andrew Porter starting the first test. Not likely to happen. I'd imagine Gatland there's going to be a Welsh flair to this Lions team, and you know, all the pundits and reading lots of stuff in the lead up to this, everybody's talking about Wyn Jones. It'll probably be Wyn Jones, but I would go for the juggernaut, and I'd start Andrew Porter and see could we dismantle the South African scrum nice and early.
Very good, very good. So Podge has gone for a little bit of inexperienced. Keith, where's your head at?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that to come out of your mouth, Podge. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I listen, he's a very, very capable scrummager, but I just wonder, is there a lack of minutes at international level on that loose side that could stand against them?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. It's a bit of a strange one. Not many people have picked him, but I think he's a foreign player. I think he carries a lot of ball, and I think he's a destructive scrummager. Wyn Jones can do everything as well. It'll be Wyn Jones to start if I was to put money on the table. But if it was me picking the team, I would put, the biggest team I have out against him up front, and Andrew Porter is a mammoth man. And, if you're the tight head prop going into a test match, he's the last guy you want to see looking across from you. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But I think he's definitely able. And him and Cian Healy, they've coming in and out of both the Leinster team and the Irish team. And I've just been hugely impressed with Andrew Porter over the last maybe 12 to 18 months. I'm putting him on the plane anyway because he can play both sides of the scrum. He offers versatility. And that's a huge part of picking a touring squad. And, if I was picking the squad, I wouldn't pick a huge squad. I wouldn't go for the 41 players or kind of having three. I think it's very hard to manage all the players. And I think, what they will do is they'll fly lads in at the drop of a hat. And I think by keeping it nice and small at the start, it allows everybody to get minutes under their belt and nobody becomes disillusioned. And next thing you've got camps among camps. But for me, number one, Andrew Porter. I just changed that just before this. I was going to start Wyn Jones, but I said no. Let's do something slightly different.
That's fair enough, Podger. I think for myself, at the start of the season, I kind of had Rory Sutherland in that sort of loose head position. But I think as the months have gone on, Wyn Jones has been more impressive. So I think I would be leaning towards Wyn Jones. I know it's the obvious thing to say, but maybe the obvious thing to say sometimes is the correct decision. But the more that I'm hearing what you're saying, the more I'm buying. I'm not going to lie. So I would be willing to give you. I'd be willing to give you Porter at 17 if you give me Jones at 1.
I'll give you Jones at 1 because I'm not fully set on it in my head. I think Andrew Porter coming off the bench is the obvious thing to do. I'll give you that one because I'll need a few later on, I think.
Okay.
Perfect. And so listen, we'll pencil them in. Wyn Jones to start and Porter to come off the bench at 17. A position you know very well, Podger, hooker. Talk to me about kind of like the dark arts of the front row and kind of what you're going to need coming over to South Africa.
Well, and I looked at all the hookers in the Six Nations, and we look at our own home team. Ireland, Rob Herring. I don't think he's a line. I think he's a cracking player, but I think his line-out throwing would let him down, especially in under the spotlight. And then we don't really have a nailed-on starter. Ronan Kelleher is a work in progress. He could be a bolter, but I think I'm just looking at what Warren Gatland did during the Six Nations, and I thought Ken Owens was absolutely outstanding. He didn't put a foot wrong and he offered real leadership. And I think Ken Owens has that jersey. I don't think anyone's going to take it off him. I think he'll be the start and test hooker. His line-out throw is good enough. He does a lot around the pitch and he'll be another leader, another grizzled, hardened test veteran. Might need a bit of dynamism off the bench, and you're looking at a couple of options there like Jamie George, Luke Cowan-Hickey, even a Ronan Kelleher, but I think Ken Owens is the obvious selection, and he's shown during the Six Nations that he's well able to play at this level still. He's at the twilight of his career, but he'd step up for Lions Tour, and he stepped up in the Six Nations.
Very good, very good. Keith, where's your thinking? Are you going for the set piece or someone in a bit of dynamism in the open?
I think, listen, I'm always going to defer to Podge on kind of the front row and that sort of stuff. It's where he made his name growing up. But sorry, Podge, you need to take a second there. You're all right. I think I had Luke Cowan-Dickey in my head, but I would be happy for him to be in a 23. So, Podge, I'm happy to give you Ken Owens if we Cowan-Dickey on the bench.
I just think the set piece is so important, and I think we haven't got to the second row yet, or potential captains, but I think you need combinations, and I think Ken Owens. I think we're all probably going to speak about Alun Jones in the second row, and I think between the two of them, they'd absolutely nail the set piece, and you're not going to beat South Africa without a set piece. I think Luke Cowan-Dickey coming off the bench when the game opens up a bit would be brilliant for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and I probably think he is the obvious backup. I think you either start with Jamie George or Ken Owens with Luke Cowan-Dickey coming off the bench.
Very good, very good. So we've another position nailed down. Okay, so moving on to the number 3. Podge, I come to you first. What's your thinking here?
I think this is the easiest selection of the whole lot of them. I think Tadhg Furlong has that number 3 shirt. I think only injury might, take it off him. And I think when you're looking at a line, he's a perfect line. He plays with his, his heart on his sleeve, and he never gives up. And I think he's probably one of the best tight heads in the world. So he starts at number 3. Some pretty good backups there. I would have went with Xander Ferguson coming off the bench. I know he got sent off in the Six Nations, but I think that's something we're going to see week in, week out now in rugby. But I think he'd be a brilliant tourist, and I think he wouldn't let the side down if Tadhg Furlong was injured. Andrew Porter could slide over there. There's plenty of options, but for me, the obvious one is Tadhg Furlong, and hopefully he stays injury free and has a fantastic Lions tour.
Yeah, perfect. Keith, I'm coming to you, but I'm sure you're going to go the same direction.
Listen, sometimes the obvious choice is the only choice. It has to be Furlong for everything that Podge said and more. You just seen the passion which he played against England. He dismantled that front row, and I think that's going to actually stand against Kyle Sinclair in this sort of case for a spot on the bench. But I think Tom Francis is a good, solid pro. There's no question about that. Is he a Lion? In the heat of battle, I'm not sure. I think Ferguson offers you a little bit more kind of in that kind of 50-50 between sort of ball handling skills and the physicality required coming off the bench. So I'd be happy with a Furlong Ferguson combo.
Yeah, I think we need to have some Scottish flair or Scottish players in the squad that are decent enough situations. Kyle Sinclair, for me, I think he has all the potential in the world, but I think discipline could let him down. I think he could get rattled easily. He just wouldn't be my type of modern day front row player.
That's fair enough. I think we've boxed off the front row. Let's move on now to the second row.
Perfect. Yeah, we're going to get stuck in here again. Keith, I'm going to come to you first with the number 4 choice. What's your thoughts here?
I think when you're picking second rows, I think you have to. Podge, I'm happy to be overruled on this, but I think you have to look at the combo of what I don't think you can pick them individually. So I think there's a lot in Alun Wyn Jones. There's a lot in all 6 guys here that are on screen at the moment. There is obviously the conversation going around of, is Tadhg Burn big enough? He's a huge unit, but to Podge's point, South Africa going to have a massive, massive pack. Is he going to handle it? I think if you're putting a gun to my head and ask me to pick 2 guys, I go with Toji and I go with Alun Wyn Jones, and I have Henderson off the bench.
Okay, that's fair enough. So I suppose, Podge, the question is, how important are the partnerships in this role? Playing with each other nationally, is that a factor? Or
I don't think nationally is as much as a thing in the partnership. I think what you got to get is a bit of balance. You need, what they call the guy to run the line out, and then you need a more mobile, almost like a Tadhg Burn, kind of second row stroke flanker, an athlete. And for me, this I completely agree with Keith on this one. I think there's such a natural partnership there between Alwyn Jones, who is, tough, teak tough, hard, will run the line out, will run everything. He'll almost referee the match for you. And then you just have this absolute freakish athlete, Maro Itoje, who on his day is probably one of the best players in the world. We haven't seen him on his day for a while because all the messing with Saracens, and he looked completely undercooked going into the Six Nations. But if you're sitting down to pick a team to take on South Africa, in their backyard, Maro Itoje, he could completely destroy their line out single-handedly. And they rely so heavily on their line out. And then I think you can't but pick Alwyn Jones. He was unbelievable in this year's Six Nations. And I think, Itoje, he's not a seasoned international at this stage, but he's played enough rugby. But beside Alwyn Jones, I think it'll just allow him to roam around freely, causing havoc, carrying ball, almost being like another back row player. And there's Ian Henderson coming off the bench, offers a lot of athleticism. A couple of years ago we talked about James Ryan as being a nailed on starter for the Lions, but he's kind of petered out a little bit. His form has plateaued. He's had a couple of injuries, and he's unlucky. He'll be on the plane. He's not on the bench for me. I'm picking Johnny Gray because when we get to the back row, you'll see why. But I think if Alwyn Jones dropped in the first 2 minutes or Maro Itoje dropped in the first couple of minutes, I'd love to see Johnny Gray on the pitch. I think he's sort of a hybrid of both of them. He can carry ball, but he's got that teak toughness, and he kind of the pillar in that Scottish pack. And I think he deserves a place. And he's another leader as well. But yeah, that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, that's very nicely wrapped up, in fairness.
Yeah, I think, Podge, to your point there about Johnny Gray, like he had a massive game in the Champions Cup final against Racing, backed it up the following week in the Premiership final against Wasps. He doesn't give you anything less than kind of that eight and a half sort of a week. So I completely agree with you. And you've turned me off Henderson now coming off the bench. So I'm quite happy to go with the two guys in the second row and Johnny coming off the bench.
I just see Johnny Gray as one of these players that, he played with a pretty average Scottish team. He's done well at club level. I think he'd flourish in a line setup. And I think he would just grow and grow and grow. And coming off the bench for, 15, 20 minutes when Jones kind of runs out of steam, I think you're just meeting toughness with toughness, and he's a big game player and definitely wouldn't let you down, in a tough environment.
Yeah, so listen, let's box those three in. So we'll go with Wyn Jones, we'll go with Itoje in the second row, and we'll bring Johnny Gray off the bench. But I suppose just before we move on to the back row, a kind of point that's just kind of noticed to me there is we've picked 4 of the 5 positions that we've picked. 4 of them started against New Zealand in 17. Is that an indication, Podge, do you think, of their lasting ability, or is that an indication of what's come through since 17 hasn't been up to scratch?
That's an interesting question. So the 4 being
Owens, Furlong, Wyn Jones, and Itoje. They all started the third test, I believe, against New Zealand.
Wow, you caught me with that one.
That's what you get in the opening pair, Podger. You have to be prepared for everything.
You have to be on your toes here.
So, they started against New Zealand in 17. I just think that shows that we know what we're talking about. and I don't think Warren Gatland, I don't think he's going to veer too much from that. They were all relatively young then, and they've a ton more experience behind them. But it just shows their longevity, and just shows that they've been performing since then, and I couldn't really argue it. There's not too much else you could throw in there. Ken Owens, I didn't think, maybe 18 months ago, I don't think we would have been talking about him as a starting hooker on the lines. I think that experience will absolutely stand to them. I really do. A Lions tour can be daunting, but coming back around again, I think all of them have huge amount of experience and yeah, can do them no harm.
That seems fair enough. Actually, just one question I've had, just listening to the two chatting away, and it's something we haven't really spoke on much, is how will the whole idea of COVID and lockdowns and biosecure bubbles, just if we, this is obviously the attritional end of the team, where do we see that working out? It's obviously hard to predict what conditions are going to be like over in South Africa. It's obviously not great at the moment. Keith, what's your thoughts here?
I think this is going to be a very special Lions tour in a unique way, considering the way the world is at the moment. It's not going to be like the razzmatazz of years gone by, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that it's still not special for these guys. It's still going to mean something and matter. The only thing I would say is like they are so used to being in bubbles now. You hear a lot of interviews where guys are kind of used to walking out and pitch, and the only thing that they're hearing is the backroom staff. I don't think it's going to bother them, Kyle, if I'm being honest with you. Like, they're professionals. They're used to this now, unfortunately.
I think it makes it even more special, I think, when we're living in an era now where you can't travel, mashing 4 international teams together to bring them to the other side of the world. I think it's going to be a pretty special tour because, we haven't had much really to look forward to in the terms of sport. And this is such a unique event every 4 years that I think there'll be, in the British and Irish Lions, there'll be huge pride in this because before countries kind of coming together as one, and I think it's coming at a lovely time as well. And I think it's important for South Africa as well. Like, as you said, they're having a terrible time, and it doesn't look like it's improving much. And hopefully, it lifts South Africa, and I think it's massive for the players as well. I think it'll be so unique. I'd say they're sick of their bubbles at the minute, where going into a bubble like this, and like there'll be huge crack involved in this, and I think it'll be interesting, and it'll be like, I think this team will be tighter, both physically and almost mentally, than any other Lions team, because they have to be,
Yeah, that's nicely covered off. I think, as you've both touched on, it's also a nice distraction just for the public. We're all in the same scenario, just sick of it and just need something to look forward to. So, okay. So with that, then we move on. We're going to our back row here. Keith, talk to me about our number 6.
Listen, I think that there's 2 guys from the previous slide that could potentially come into a conversation here with Henderson and Ty Byrne. I put Ben Earl in there. I think Ben Earl is very underrated in England. That's just my own opinion. He's got that kind of like 7 out of 10 mentality. Now, is that going to get him on the plane? Maybe not. Jamie Ritchie had a really, really good season for Scotland, for club and country. CJ's obviously, he empties the tank, and it would be a nice kind of bookend to his career if he started in South Africa and finished in South Africa. But like, we're not here to kind of like make dreams happen. We're here to like pick a team that's going to win this first test. So I'm going to kind of push for Jamie Ritchie in the 6 shirt.
Okay. Podger?
So like, foreign player of the Six Nations and the season so far, I think he has to be on the team. I think Ty Byrne has done enough. He was arguably Ireland's standout player in the Six Nations. He didn't make it into my second row, but I think he needs to be in that pack. And I think he might start the first test. If it doesn't work for him, he might not play again due to the physicality. And can he do what he does, for Munster and Ireland by turning over ball and being, like that other open side flanker? I've gone with him to start simply because he's just a foreign player in the home nations. I think also the line-out's going to be so important. So he gives us a real good third option with Wyn Jones, Maro Toje, and then like Ty Byrne at the back of the line-out. You've got a real good line-out option. So I'm going with him, but like, this is the hardest part of the team to pick. Like, I've done this 3 or 4 times, and I've changed it every time. I had Tom Curry, I had CJ Stander, I had and Tyke Byrne. I just want with Tyke Byrne because a bit like I told you, if he plays well, he can be a real menace to any pack. But still on the fence with him. But who did you go with, Duffer? You went with Jamie Ritchie.
I went with Jamie Ritchie. I think he's had a really, really good season. I think he's one of these guys, like he gets on the plane.
He gets on the plane, yeah.
But how much further does he get? And I completely take everything that you're saying on board about Byrne, all right. And like, it's just been massive performance after massive performance. Yeah. And I think perhaps at times we can get a little bit caught up with our own kind of players sometimes and maybe not appreciate what other guys can do. Now, I'm not saying that means that Byrne hasn't been leaps and bounds ahead of Ritchie. I just think Ritchie does a lot of good stuff off the ball that isn't always seen. But I think for me, it comes down for these guys. Do we need more of that kind of poaching ability, third line out option, or do we need this guy with the performing the dark arts in kind of rucks and what? Like, where do you see the need of a 6 to be for this tour and this first match?
It depends on our 7 or 8, but I think we need 3 line out options. Like I think we haven't a hope of beating South Africa if we don't have a set piece and spoil their set piece. So
agreed.
I think 3 line out options. I think Tyke Byrne is a brilliant line out option. I think we can only really carry one out and out kind of ball poacher, and we'll talk about him on the other side of the scrum. But I just think Tyke Byrne, a bit like Porter, if it goes well, it's going to go fantastic well for me. And he's going to destroy and slow ball down and turn line out ball over. I think for me, it's worth a punt in the first test. Doesn't come off, roll in Jamie Ritchie's, roll in CJ Standers, put in Tom Curry at 6 or Tipperick or, but I just think he's a foreign player and he's playing out with skin and I do appreciate Jamie Ritchie in the dark arts and everything, but I think if it goes well for Tyke Byrne, he's a match winner.
That's fair enough. It's a spanner in the works there, isn't it, with Tyke being thrown in? But I suppose we need to make a decision here. So
I listen. I'm happy to defer to Tyke Byrne at 6. I think, listen, what you can do also as well, Podge, that we haven't said is if it's not working out for Byrne, bring in Johnny Hill into the second row and bring Mario Toja to 6. There's an option as well in mid-game that you could possibly go down with. So listen, let's pencil in Byrne at 6. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, perfect. That's Tyke Byrne.
For you, anything, Podge. For you, anything.
No problem, Duffer.
It's very nice to see us all get along.
I'd say we're going to have an argument around.
It's going to get spicy from here on.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so that's 6 settled. Number 7, Podge. I'll defer to you firstly. What's your thinking?
What's my thinking? I changed this a couple of times today. The back row is so hard to pick, and
it really is. So many options. Yeah,
and you're only as good as your last match. And I've gone with Hamish Watson. He's played out of his skin, all action, foreign player. Will just chop guys down all day. And like if you're looking at a line, he's a line, and he's played out of his skin all year. Is he big enough? That's the debate the poor guy's had for his whole career, and he's answered that every time. So many options at 7. Tipperick, Hamish Watson, you could, Underhill, Curry, but I think they're all very similar, and I'm trying to get as many Scottish guys in the team as possible, and I think he deserves it, and he'll work, all game, just chopping South Africans down all day. So that's where I went, but you could look at it a couple of other ways as well.
Yeah, actually, myself and Keith spoke off air just before the show, and he was the one name that I circled myself. I enjoyed watching at the World Cup. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Keith, what's your thoughts?
Signed off. Watson at 7. Let's go.
Yeah, lovely. Love that. Perfect. Okay. Easy work. Okay, we're moving on to our number 8. Keith?
Again, like it's. I feel like we're going to just keep saying the same things over again. It's so hard to pick from this kind of group of players. Conan obviously came back strong at the end of Six Nations with that big game against England. Backed it up against Exeter. Like that's a massive, massive result that they had going to Exeter. You know, at the time we're recording now, this weekend it's going to be Leinster against La Rochelle. Again, if he keeps going in the form he is, he could find himself in that red number 8 jersey. But I think that guy in the middle of the 5 there, Toby Faletau, I think he's the guy that has to play, in my opinion. I think he can glue it all together. And I know we said before about the 2017 team coming back together for sort of one last ride, but like, I mean, form is temporary and class is permanent.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like, you know, if we've seen a different England team in the Six Nations, maybe Billy Vunipola, because he has that kind of, I hate the term, but the X factor, like he could turn it on. I looked at CJ Sander at 8. For me, he's just so one-dimensional, and you know, he likes to run into the wall all day, and it's a big old wall against South Africa. And I think we need a bit of a footballer at 8. And Faletau, he does it all. He's hard. He's a good line-out option as well. He's great hands, and he's been there and done it before. And he's a favourite at Gatland. He's going to start. I put CJ Sander on the bench simply because he can cover 8 and 6, and he won't let you down, and you know, he could come off the bench for 15 minutes and just carry ball all day, and he has that experience. But like, lots of options there, but Faletau was the obvious one, and yeah, I think he's the man for that job.
Lovely. Okay. Actually, just from when you did mention CJ Stander, and it's something that's been curious to me, this retirement upcoming, do you think that's a factor for him, that he's kind of winding down and maybe...
I don't know. I was laughing at Keith when he was giving him his kind of farewell, and it's a great place for him to finish his career. I think he might finish his career a little further afield in Japan or somewhere. I don't think he's quite ready yet to put the feet up. You know, I wonder what the contract offer was like from down in Munster. He's going back to South Africa for a while. Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's some sentimental reasons to go back to South Africa, but I'd say he could be pulling on a Bulls jersey within 18 months, or packing his bags and heading off to Japan. I don't think it's the end of him just yet.
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So right, we've that squared away. We'll move to the backs. The exciting part. Okay.
Yeah.
So
let the row begin, Podger. Let the row begin.
Let's let the fun and games begin.
Here's the first one.
Okay. So Keith, I'll come to you first on our starting number 9. Where are you thinking?
I mean, like, what do you do here? So
there's a lot of heavy breathing there.
At the start of the Six Nations, I had Ali Price, and then at the end of the Six Nations, I had Ben Youngs, and then I thought about Murray, and then I went back to Price.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up sticking with Ben Youngs at 9 and Price to be the spare on the bench.
Yeah. Okay.
My theory behind this is a little bit deeper than Duffer's. When you see the rest of my back line, I'm going with Conor Murray. And now, I'm by no means the biggest Munster fan in the world, but I thought he was absolutely excellent in Six Nations. I think he suits the way Gatland wants to play. There's going to be a lot of kicking. There's going to be a lot of chasing. And I think... the other guys just haven't played well enough. Like Ben Youngs, I have Ben Youngs on the bench. I thought he did quite well for England on a bad English team. Ali Price doesn't make the playing for Podge. And my third scrum half, I was bringing Tommaso Williams from Wales. Is that how you pronounce it? Thomas Williams. But yeah, I think Conor Murray, he's playing quite well, and now he was you know, he's coming into form. When you look through the rest of the backline, I'll go back to Conor Murray and explain some of the reasoning behind that. But I think he's a big game player, and I think he'd revel in this, and I think he's in form. Ben Youngs coming off the bench for the last 10-15 minutes would add a bit of life to it, and maybe an Ali Price. That's not a bad shout either. He adds a lot of speed and dynamism to it. But I think Conor Murray has enough credentials and experience and form going into this to start from me.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I suppose, Keith, the experience of Conor Murray, how much of a role do you think that could play to be an advantage?
Listen, like when you've got Murray and you've got Youngs, you've got two guys that nearly have 200 caps, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's massive. Like, and Ali Price is a very, very talented 9. I think like there's a lot of good that he brings, and I suppose the reason that I had Price kind of in my head was that I thought he could maybe break things up where Murray and Youngs are going to be a little more kind of regimented and traditional in their style, but maybe that's what's needed in this situation, because ultimately it's not about playing sexy rugby, it's about playing winning rugby. So I think the fact, Podge, that we both have Youngs, we've both said Youngs, I'm happy to pencil him in at 21. And sure, listen, I trust the brain of Podge O'Donnell that this magical backline is going to come apart. So
okay.
I'd almost give you this one if you give me the next one.
Oh,
it depends on who you want.
We can circle back. We can circle back if we need to.
Listen, let's pencil in Murray at 9, and let's pencil in Youngs to be the spare.
Okay, that's fair enough. Podge, I'll come to you first for our 10. You seem to be very excited about this one. So what have you got for us?
No, if I know Duffer well enough, I know what's coming down the tracks.
Yeah, I think we both know. Yeah.
Podge wants to play sexy rugby, so he's picking Finn Russell. He's picking Finn Russell, and I mean, you know, it could go badly wrong. But I think you need. How do you beat South Africa? Like, do you play them at their own game? I think what you do is you get parity up front and then cause them problems. But I think if you just keep running into them and kicking the ball away and stuff, it's going to be a long day. Like, Finn Russell is a joy to watch when it goes well.
He's got that X factor, all right.
And that's why I'm picking Murray at 9, because he'll marshal him, he'll take a bit of pressure off him. And, you know, when we get to 12, I'm going to do something similar as well, where I think if a lot of the pressure took off Finn Russell to manage the game, I think he could be mercurial. I think there could be a grubber, a crossfield kick, a moment of magic that will, you know, win you a series or win you a test. Now, look, it could be a moment of chaos where you're packing your bags and you're heading home with your tail between your legs. But, God, like, we need to make it exciting.
We do.
I like that. Yeah, Keith, come on. What have we got for us here?
Like, I can't buy into this, Podge. I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't. Like you know, like the carry on of him the last 10 minutes in Twickenham, going for a drop goal when you need, like, you've the game won. Don't be giving the ball back.
Yeah.
Like I know there's a lot of good in him. Like, I know when you're talking about the mercurialism, I think back to the Racing Munster game in 2019 in the group stage at the Heineken Cup, and he just ran the show. You know, the little dink between Rory Scannell's legs for a try. Like, there's so much beauty and class that he kind of like runs this game. But I can't, Podger. I can't. Like,
let me put it this way to you. You're a Newcastle United supporter, aren't you?
I for my sins.
Ginola, Aspria, like, you grew up watching this guy.
They won nothing as well, and we'll win nothing if Russell's at 10.
To me, he's the David Luiz of rugby. That's what he strikes me as. When it comes off, it's absolutely outstanding, but when it doesn't, it just goes all wrong. So
show business, it's entertainment.
Podger. Bigger is the only man for the job.
Oh, no, I agree with you. No, he's not even on the bench for me.
Oh wow!
I was gung-ho coming on here to have a Johnny Sexton debate and argument with you.
That's the name that's caught me out. It hasn't been mentioned at all. Like, I'm surprised.
Yeah. I was ready to unleash reasons for no Johnny Sexton, but look, you made my evening easier.
I think Bigger.
Settle this?
I think Bigger was the best 10 in the Six Nations, in my own opinion.
Oh no, he 100% was.
But then why aren't we picking him?
because the best 10 in the Six Nations, I don't think is going to beat South Africa.
Is bigger on your bench?
No, I've no 10 on my bench.
Oh wow.
Okay, I think I know what you're thinking. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
So this is a tricky one. So am I going to have the deciding vote here?
Go on, Kyler. You go with the sexy rugby.
Kyle.
I'm actually going to go with bigger. I'm going to go with bigger. I am going to go with bigger. I am. I've been reading a few articles about him, and yeah, I just think Warren Gatland, his whole Welsh connection, whatever. Yeah. So for me, I'd go bigger. So whatever that's worth, but that's what I would go with.
Bigger it is. So.
Okay.
So my whole backline, my whole master plan is going to
it's just all going up in smoke.
Podge, you can still sell us the dream. Sell us the dream of the backline.
Yeah,
maybe we'll come back around.
We could circle back. We could circle back potentially. Yeah. Okay, right. We'll move on. So we'll move on to the 12 and 13. Podge, seeing as I kind of stabbed you in the back, I'll come to you first. Give you a first whack here at number 12.
Yeah, well, on Podge's electric rugby team, he has Finn Russell at 10, but he has Owen Farrell at 12. I'm picking Owen Farrell at 12. Back to my theory that we can carry Finn Russell at 10 by having Owen Farrell at 12 and Conor Murray at 9. So Finn Russell doesn't even have to place kick. He doesn't even have to manage a game because he's got Owen Farrell beside him and Conor Murray the other side. And he's just allowed to be the David Ginola of the Lions team and pull the strings and play this philosophy and beautiful rugby that Podge the hooker wants to play. But George North being injured kind of hampered my plans everything a small bit as well.
How much of a blow is that? It's huge, isn't it? Really?
I think he's got the size. He's got something different. He could play on the wing, play at second centre. But like when I looked at the 12 shirt, there was no real obvious one apart from Robbie Henshaw. So I think Robbie Henshaw plays his best rugby at 13.
A lot of people say that, Podge. Why do a lot of people say that?
Because I honestly think he played his best rugby at the start of his career at 15, where he broke on the scene with Connacht and he had space, and he's actually an electric runner when he gets going and gets space. But when he moved to Leinster, Gary Ringrose was there and he played a lot of 12 and it's crash bang wallop stuff. But there's a lot more to his game, and I think we've seen it in the Six Nations when he played at 13. He was a real handful, and he's so good defensively as well. So and the 13 channel is probably the hardest place on a pitch to defend, and he's just so good in that position, and he just adds real solidity. I think this is his time. I think if he plays at 13 for the Lions, I think you're going to see he's never played as well. He's struggled, and that's down to stringing a lot of games together. He's played a lot of rugby this year. He's usually played 1 or 2 games, been out for 1 or 2 games, back in for 1 game, and I think with Owen Farrell at 12, Robbie at 13, I think you've got a nice mix of game management, defensive solidity, and I think Robbie still has tons of X factor to him, and he'll get over the game line and he'll offload and he'll put players away. So that's where I went with the 13 shirt. Put Robbie in at 13 and not 12. And I think Owen Farrell, I think having 2 playmakers is important in the modern game, and I think Farrell offers a lot at 12.
Okay, that's fair enough. Keith, will that have your take?
I agree with Podge about the 2 playmakers, but my playmakers at 13, and his name is Henry Slade. I'm putting Slade at 13, and I'm going to put Henshaw at 12. So I'm going to have bigger at 10, moving into Henshaw at 12, and then
you've no Farrell at all in your 15.
I've no Farrell at all. Would have Farrell. I'd have Farrell on the bench as my spare 10. So that's where I'm kind of thinking. I think Slade has been one of the informed players in an England shirt. I think he was one of I'd say probably was their best player, I thought, in the Six Nations from a backline point of view, with maybe Anthony Watson as the exception. I think that he offers a lot, and even the that Leinster Exeter game that we kind of touched on. He was the one that kept asking for the ball. He was the one that was trying to open up that defense, trying something. And I think he could come of age on a Lions tour, I think.
And where are you playing him, 12 or 13?
I'm playing him at 13 and I'm moving Robbie to 12.
Right, fair enough. He's on the plane. I'm bringing Henry Slade because there's not too many centres out there when you take George North out of it. I'm bringing 4 centres: Jonathan Davis, Robbie Henshaw, Owen Farrell. I'm calling them a centre, and Henry Slade, because I looked at the Scottish centres and they're all good players, but
similar enough, aren't they?
Yeah, it's all very similar, and I think Henry Slade, if a Robbie Henshaw got injured or Jonathan Davis got injured, he's an out-and-out 13. And it was either him or Ringrose, and I think Slade offers more versatility. He can play in more positions. And it's a bit of a gamble, but I agree. He's a serious talent. I was looking at Tuolagi as well, but he just won't have enough rugby in him as well.
No, I agree
with
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's our starting 12? So
you see, I've destroyed Podger's idea of vintage sexy rugby.
Yeah.
So
my philosophy's gone out the window now. I don't know. I don't think Henry Slade is a nailed-on starter in any Lions team. So
I accept that point.
It's a wild one. It's like my Finn Russell. It's a bit optimistic. I'm going to settle this one with Owen Farrell at 12 and Robbie at 13. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that actually.
I'll sign off on that, Podge. That's
not. That's on the basis that George North was injured. So I was scratching my head a lot today. I would have probably went with Robbie Henshaw at 12 and George North at 13, and just went for Warren Ball. And the beautiful rugby was gone out the window. So
crash bang wallop stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going with Farrell and Henshaw at 12 and 13.
I think they're the two best. Like, Owen Farrell's England's best player, and Robbie Henshaw is one of Ireland's best players. I think if you're picking your best team, I think it's the most logical thing to do.
Yeah, Farrell for me has to be in there somewhere for what that works. But for that, I think he has to be in there.
I suppose, Podge, we need to kind of think about then a replacement point of view as well. So if we're going with Bigger at 10, Farrell at 12, then do we have a need for an out half on the bench?
No, you don't. And
do any of these guys come in potentially, or are we looking back 3 options for the bench then?
The way I looked at it was a centre and an outside back on the bench. I think you're going to be very unlucky to lose Bigger and Owen Farrell to injuries. And my 15, who's probably your 15, and the whole world, I say that actually, it could be anybody. It could be Henry Slade. But my 15 could also slot in at 10.
Agreed. Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from.
If there was an absolute wipeout of 10s. So on the bench, I went with Jonathan Davis and Rhys Zammit. A bit of flair and then a bit of seasoned pro. So like Jonathan Davis could go in and do a job at 12 or 13. He played 12 in Brian O'Driscoll's Lions tour. And then I think Rhys Zammit, I couldn't get him into my starting team, but I definitely think he's a foreign player, could win a match for you. So number 23, Rhys Zammit for me, but there's loads of options there. I'm just looking for an exciting player to change a game as my second back, and then something solid. And I think Jonathan Davis is bloody unlucky not to be on the team in the starting place.
Player of the series from a Lions point of view in 17 against the All Blacks, I believe, off the top of my head. But I think great rugby brain as well. Just understand space from a defensive and an attacking point of view. But listen, I think let's pencil those 2 guys in at 22 and 23. So all we need to kind of shape out now is our 2 wingers and fullback.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's move on to that. So. Okay, so number 11. Keith, I'll come to you first. Who is your starting number 11?
I think it has to be Van der Merwe. He was a top try scorer for Scott in the Six Nations this year. He's just kind of gone strength from strength since he's gotten into international rugby. He's my left winger. I know Johnny May is very unlucky, but I think, if you're taking on South Africa, like, we do need big lads.
I looked at this long and hard. He's on the plane for me. He just didn't do enough. I think he played well. Did he? Your memory's better than mine, Keith. Did he score a hat full of tries against Scotland and looked unbelievable? I think he did score a lot of tries, but kind of in handy enough games.
Yeah, he's a great man to clean up against the lesser, but he did. So he scored against Wales. He scored against England, and he scored against us in the Autumn Nations Cup. He scored a great individual try. I think that there's something in him.
100%.
So if it's not him, is it May?
No, God no. He's not even on the plane for me.
Oh wow,
he drives me mad. I don't know. He's just one of these lads that, he scores a hatful of tries, but he never fills me with confidence. Under a high ball, I always think he just looks flaky to me, but he's not. It's just a pure personal. He's not my type of winger.
Well, it is the opening pair 15, so that's fine. We can do this.
So who is it, Podge?
My team. It's Liam Williams.
Yeah. Oh.
I can't pick a Lions team without picking Liam Williams, and I can't get him in at fullback, so he needs to be on the pitch because I just think he's a joy to watch. Stand out for Wales for years. He plays on the left wing for me. I just need to get him in the team. And I think Gatland will just get him in the team. So, he's a fullback. He's not playing fullback for me because I'm picking Stuart Hogg.
Agreed.
And I think, he offers versatility as well. Liam Williams can slot in fullback. Hogg is likely to pop up all over the place. I just think Liam Williams has to be on the team. I think he's just a phenomenal rugby player. He's got game breaking ability. He'll score tries, and if you're South African, you're kicking the ball down to Liam Williams, you're in trouble. So he's my left winger anyway.
Who's your right winger then? Fill it out.
Anthony Watson. I think he's England's best player. Other wingers, I just think it's his time. I could take your point on Van der Merwe, the other names on the list, Johnny May, Jacob Stockdale. I just think he's got that mix of size and speed and X factor. Now, ask me again in 10 minutes, it mightn't be him, but that's the way the cards fell today. I think he's grown into a really good international winger and bit of versatility as well. He could play full back, where the likes of Johnny May and Van der Merwe, they're out and out wingers. So it was Anthony Watson or Reece Zammit for me on the other wing.
So I presume if that was if needs be, you'd swap Watson and Reece Zammit, and you'd put Watson on the bench in 10 minutes time if you wanted to change, would you?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list here as well. The four out-and-out wingers I'm bringing are Anthony Watson, Reece Zammit, Van der Merwe, and Keith Earls. Johnny May was close, but I just went with Keith Earls. For more leadership, bit of experience. I've written him off 100 times over the years. He keeps scoring tries for Ireland. I think there's more of a line to him than a Johnny May. Yeah, so Johnny May doesn't make it. He's on holidays with Johnny Sexton.
Madness. I think, listen, the guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing in Lions shirt is Stuart Hogg. This guy was unfortunately robbed. The 17 tour. He got injured against the Barbarians in the first game. And that kind of allowed Liam Williams then to kind of take up that 15 shirt, and maybe in the butterfly effect we don't get that beautiful Sean O'Brien try in that first test, right, from 122 to another. But listen, I take all your points on board, Podge, completely. I think Hogg at 15, Watson at 14, and Liam Williams at 11. And listen, let's get as many of the heroes of 2017 into this.
Yeah, it's incredible that's the way it's worked out. But the thing about the Lions tour is that, like, Johnny May could go on tour, doesn't start the first test, carves it up in the midweekers, and next thing he wins the final test. Like that's what I love about it. Like some of the other names as well. Hugo Keenan, very unlucky for me because I'm bringing 2 fullbacks and some of the wingers can cover fullback, but like I thought he had a fantastic Six Nations. Another player who could just turn it on the Lions tour. But like the back row and the back three were really hard to kind of settle on.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, going into a first test, I as I said at the start of the chat, that going for experienced and kind of seasoned pros. My X factor off the bench is Reece Zammit, and I'm going with Finn Russell to turn the key and unlock that defense. But yeah, like there's so many permutations to this.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's tricky. Yeah. So I one question I would have for both of you is, overall, looking at the squad, and we've picked a 15 here. How confident are you guys going into this series of a Lions victory, Keith?
That's a tough one, Kyle, because it's still the whole story of 4 teams into one, as opposed to one group of lads that know one another. The one thing that is clearly in ahead of the Lions is just simply the fact that they've been playing. Like a lot of these South African guys haven't really been playing too much rugby, and as a nation, they didn't play in the Rugby Championship last year. So this is going to be their first outing since they won the World Cup, and that's crazy to say. If you're asking to put a gun to my head and do the Lions win the series, I think it's 2-1 either way, but I couldn't tell you which.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Lions will win this one. It's such a crazy tour, and Duffer's point to 4 countries coming into one. I just think there's such a romance to this in the COVID era that I think they'll win the first 2, and I think South Africa will have the rust well knocked off by the 3rd test, and we might lose the 3rd test. I think the first 15 is really strong. Like we on paper, there's so much experience. You've talked about so many of the guys on the 2017 tour, but like I look at that side, and you've got guys in the peak of their powers, like Atoje, Wyn Jones, Faletau, like Conor Murray, Owen Farrell. There's Stuart Hogg, Ken Owens, there's Johnny Gray. There's so many out and out leaders, warriors, leaders, whatever way you want to call it. But I think they have enough to pull this together, and looking at a second row of Wyn Jones and Itoje and like it's ferocious, and I think they have the size, the toughness to not be intimidated, not be bullied, get the set piece right, and I think they'll grind down South Africa.
Fair enough.
Who do we cap? Who captains this side, Podge, in your eyes? This side
there's only one man for that job, and it's Wyn Jones. Yeah, absolutely, Wyn Jones. He's your Martin Johnson, Paul O'Connell. He's that type of leader. Stuart Hogg would be a good bet as well, I think. But I think Wyn Jones is the only man for the job. He has to be the captain.
Do you have any other thoughts, Kyler, on where you're thinking from a captain point of view?
Yeah, I think I agree with Podger. He is the outstanding candidate, isn't he? A guy that really impressed me from the last Lions tour, and I'm not sure he's in the running or not, was Mario Itoje.
Yeah.
Whether he's captaincy material or not, I don't know. But just from the outside looking in, he really caught my eye with just his performances, and he seemed to. I actually watched the Lions documentary. And he seemed to just be popular amongst everybody. He was that type of character that got everyone together. And obviously on the field, he was an absolute leader. But for me, it has to be Alwyn, especially with the Gatlin factor. I know I've mentioned that already. Yeah. I think he's going to go that way. But yeah, if anyone is to challenge him, maybe Farrell, another one. I don't know, maybe. But Yeah, probably Al Window, I'd imagine, is the guy for the job. Keith, what do you think?
I think, it's the same names we kind of keep coming back to. It's your Alan Wins, it's your Mario Toges, your Farrells. Like, ultimately, and like Podge, you've been in many a dressing room. Just because you're not named official captain doesn't mean that you don't stand up and lead. Like how many times do you go into war and you look around, you got 7 or 8 lads there.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think whether he's given the captaincy or not, he's going to be the captain of that tour. Wyn Jones, he's going to pull the whole thing together. He's going to go out and meet the media. He's not going to flinch. And he has such a presence on the pitch with referees as well. Like my dad watches all the Welsh games and says he's the biggest cheater in the world, and I was like, but he's good at it,
Yeah. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, like
Eddie Guerrero would say.
He barely gets a yellow card, but he's just slowing down ball, falling over rucks, wrong side, slow coming back. He's such a pro, and I think it has to be, if he goes down injured, then you have a couple of good debates. And I think we've covered the obvious candidates as well. But there's so many leaders on that team, and that's why I think they won't have a problem in Scotland or in South Africa. Sorry, for me, he's the natural leader. He's done it time and time again. Over 100 caps. What more do you want?
Yeah, it seems to be squared away. Actually, a question I have for both of you as well is something that just crossed my mind especially listening to the picks for 11, 14 and 15. Do you see any bolters, any guys that could just come out of absolutely nowhere and take the tour by the scruff of the neck and nail a place down? Who's coming to mind, or is there anyone?
So do you want to go? I'll go with this first because I was going to ask that question as well. Like, you look at Exeter, you look at Sam Simmons, and I put him on the plane. So I have him I've picked 7 back rowers, and he's one of them. Because I was looking for a game breaking number 8. Falatau is there. But there's no real. I just don't think Billy Vunipola is at the peak of his powers, and I think Sam Simmons could come as a bolter. It's not unlike Ashland to do things like this. Yeah. Sam Simmons is one for me. For me, another bolter was Andrew Porter, starting him. And then I looked at Tuilagi as a potential kind of, do you bring him, let him get fit on the tour, and could he come in and play, the second or third test? But some people, a lot of people might mention Simon Zebo as well. Even a Danny Kerr, who's been playing out of his skin for Harlequins. But the only obvious one that might force his way in is Sam Simmons.
Okay, Keith, have you got anyone for us?
Yeah, Podge took the obvious. Again, I keep saying it. Sometimes the obvious comment to make is the only comment to make. Like, Simmons has done everything possible except get England caps underneath his belt. For whatever reason, his face doesn't fit in, and sometimes that just happens, unfortunately, as we see our 15 load up here now. But no, Simmons would be the one. But Kyler, listen, take us through this opening pair, Lions 15.
Yeah, so we have Alwyn at 1, with Furlong at number 3 there.
Ken Owens propping them up in the middle.
Yeah,
as at hooker. Hey, actually, Podge, yourself and himself have an uncanny similarity.
Yeah, they do.
Sure do.
And we obviously have our captain then, Alwyn Jones, and Mario Toja, potentially a vice captain. Tyg Byrne has made it in, so we've settled on that one. We have Hamish Marshall and Toby Falatau at 8. How are we happy enough with that? Yeah, when we're seeing it now in the light of day.
No, I think we're happy enough there.
Yeah.
Then unfortunately we don't get Podge's sexy backline, but we get something. We get some. Listen, to be fair, Podge, you got most of your picks in there. So I mean, have a bit of faith and vigor.
Not even going to watch this team play rugby.
It's a good match though, with Murray and Bigger partnering up. Then we all
kicking the leather off the ball.
The bomb squad, yeah.
Bomb squad, yeah.
Then we have Farrell and our own Robbie Henshaw. It's a nice partnership. I think we all agreed on that one. Stuart Hogg at fullback was unanimous enough. Anthony Watson basically the same, and Liam Williams then brings us out our number 11. So yeah, I think we've managed to pick a 15 eventually, but Podge, you're happy enough overall?
Overall, yeah. I don't know. I can't believe I'm on the Opening Pairs podcast show and you're gone conservative and you're going to kick the leather off the ball.
I'm sorry, Podge. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we like winning. We like winning here. We like to play it safe and try and win. But Keith, have you any closing statements with our 15?
Listen, injury permitting, I think we've probably nailed on, I'd say, about 12 of what will more than likely start, I think. Coming into this, I had a feeling myself and Podge would agree on at least 5 or 6. And there's obviously a few, guys who you wouldn't pick, but they might be on the bench and whatnot. But no, listen, I'm happy enough with that 15. I think it's a strong 15. And listen, all roads lead to the first test.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's nicely wrapped up. Podge, just want to thank you very much for joining us this evening. You were giving up your evening, which we really appreciate. It's great to have a little bit of knowledge on board with us. Absolutely. Anything for you guys. I enjoyed it. And we might do something at the end of the tour to see how close we were to getting it right.
Definitely. And Podge, listen, take a couple of minutes there. Talk about things that you're working on at the moment, where people can find you on social media.
Yeah, like I do a little bit of coverage for Midlands 103, so I get carted out with Will O'Callaghan to cover the Six Nations and other rugby topics. We might have a chat about this on Midlands 103. And then you'll find me on the side of a rugby pitch very soon in Lakelands and Terenure with Terenure under 20s. Delighted to be getting back out on the pitches hopefully very soon, and like a lot of our crew will be busy with leaving certs, but we'll get back on the S&C buzz and into the gym on the 8th of June. Gyms are opening on the 7th of June, so we're excited by that. And there's a lot of rugby players out there who haven't played rugby, so there's almost 2 lost generations at this stage of underage rugby players. And yeah, I enjoy that, and I get to pick the team for real sometimes, and you better be damn sure we play sexy rugby.
Podger, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll get you on soon enough again. Thank you so much for your
time.
Brilliant.
Best of luck. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
Podger. What a show, Tyler.
Yeah, geez, we've managed. I didn't think we'd get through it so easily, but we did. We managed without really falling out here too much. But no, it was very enjoyable. I actually, look, as I said, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy the chat, and we managed to pick a very solid team, I believe.
Yeah, no, I think that what we've kind of landed on there, I do believe we'll get about 10, 12 injury permitting, obviously. I think that will start. But listen, let's see this episode home, Kyler. Where can all the people find you?
Yeah, so once again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe,
all the things.
Comments, all the social media things. Keith, you're on Keith Kilduff Media on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at KyleGavin23 on the same platforms. But we're just delighted to have everyone join in, and hopefully you enjoy the show. And that's it. Stay safe and have a good evening, everyone.
Perfect. Thanks very much for tuning in as always, guys. Take care and see you on the next one.